Hello and welcome to this short video in which we are previewing the AQE 2022 event, the Air Quality and Emissions Show. This year I'm delighted to have with me Jim Mills from Scotswold Limited. If you've been involved with air quality for the last, dare I say, 40 years, then you'll probably know Jim. Jim is now an independent consultant and he's been helping the event organisers to put together the conference on ambient air quality. So Jim, I wonder if we could start, thanks so much, of course, for joining me. I wonder if we could start off, I know you've been targeting the content of the presentations to address the main issues in air quality at the moment. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, sure, Graham. Thanks very much. So I think what we're trying to do is build on last year's very successful conference, which of course was virtual. This year we see the return of the in-person conference with associated trade exhibitions, workshops and poster sessions as well. So the conference this year, like last, has 4 main sessions over the 2 days. The first session on the 12th, the morning of the 12th, will focus on an update from government, mainly on the new Environment Bill, but especially focused on air quality issues. This recently passed Royal Assent, so we'll hear a little bit more about that. We'll also hear from a major philanthropic group about the work they're doing in order to hold government to account and improve air quality globally. We'll also have an update on the UK's air quality expert group, who advise government. And then finally, we'll hear from someone at the National Physical Laboratory whose work essentially on standardization and measurement will underpin all of the strategy that government are currently following on air quality.
Okay, sounds great. And have you got speakers? I know we're speaking quite early in advance of the show, but have you got any speakers committed as yet?
Yes, actually, all of the speakers for that first session are currently confirmed, and we'll shortly be publishing abstracts and titles on the AQE website for people to look in a little bit deeper.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, so that's on the 12th of October, when the first session is.
That's correct, yeah. And on the afternoon of the 12th, we'll move to focus a little bit more on measurement technologies, which has always been the sort of central theme of the AQE exhibition, with a lot of different manufacturers, technology companies presenting. So this session, we're going to learn a little bit more about the UK's black carbon monitoring network. And black carbon is increasingly important, not only as an air pollution component, but it's also a driver of climate change, second only to carbon dioxide. So we're going to hear a little bit more about what the UK networks are doing to measure black carbon, but we're also going to hear about a practical application of small sensor technology and the ongoing work from the Quant programme, which is testing a range of manufacturers' technologies at York University. We did hear about Quant last year in its early stages. This year, we're going to follow up and find out a little bit more about the conclusions of that programme. We're also going to hear about a practical application of small sensor technology applied during the COP26 conference in Glasgow last year, where they were not only measuring the kind of normal criteria pollutant species like NOx and SO2 and PM, but also the rapid measurement of CO2 in the atmosphere, which allows the network to calculate emissions indices, which can then be used to look at local, regional and transboundary pollutants and separate those so that strategy can be better informed in future. And we're also going to learn of a new project to determine if small air quality sensing technology could perhaps be deployed on existing cellular network infrastructure, so cellular communications networks, where power, communication, security are readily available across our cities. Could that be used as an infrastructure to easier facilitate air quality monitoring, and perhaps other environmental measurements as well.
Sounds great. So that brings us to the end of the 12th of October, presumably. And then Ambient continues on the 13th as well?
Yeah, so we're going to be in the morning of the 13th looking at how monitoring, modelling and air quality management activities can be brought together. Quite often these things are operating quite separately, and it's clear amongst air quality practitioners at the moment. It's never been more important to bring the thinking together and the budgets together. I mean, government has to consider, that modelling and monitoring must come together in order to facilitate better management of air quality. And what is the balance? How much monitoring do you need? How much modelling should you do? These are complementary in most people's minds. And by assimilating monitoring data into models, including the local emissions index, which we talked about a little bit before in the COP26 project in Glasgow, we can start to use the models to predict what the likely outcomes of technology and strategy changes in air quality management are going to bring about. And we can use the monitoring in order to verify those model predictions. And we've recently seen some work, some very interesting work by some of the leading modelers who are going to be speaking in this session about just exactly how this can be done in order to really enhance the kind of information that can be extracted from both of these activities. We're also going to ask the question about combining local air quality strategies with climate change mitigations, because there are a lot of win-win situations there as well. But again, quite often the strategy for local air quality and climate change are separate because the budgets in government are separate, the thinking is separate. What we're going to do at this conference is challenge how we can better combine the climate change issues and the air quality issues in order to get a really much better outcome than has been the case in the past.
Sure. Okay. And then the final session on the afternoon of the 13th?
Yes, so the final session is going to focus on an emerging sector in air quality, which is perhaps one of the most important, given that most of us spend most of our day indoors. Indoor air quality is becoming a real concern now. And not surprisingly, after the pandemic, where indoor ventilation became increasingly important to understand and to improve. Because if we ventilate indoor spaces correctly, we can limit the transmission of airborne pathogens. But it's always been important to ventilate indoor air spaces well, especially in schools, where we're expecting our children to concentrate and to learn. It's been shown that higher levels of carbon dioxide in the classroom diminishes the cognition of children over time. And there is a clear relationship between their academic scoring and the concentration of CO2 that these children are learning in. So recently, the government decided to put CO2 monitors and particle monitors into school classrooms as a pilot study. We're going to hear a little bit more about that, what it hopes to achieve, and how that will hopefully lead to improved indoor air quality. But of course, as we ventilate the indoor spaces, we've got to be very careful that we don't bring pollution from outdoors into that indoor space. And finally, we're going to hear during this session also from the companies that are responsible for ventilation technology and also abatement technology, where they can perhaps remove some of the harmful pollutants from air where it's not possible to ventilate from outdoor air. So an incredibly interesting final session, which I think is going to be becoming really a focus of a lot of the technology developments over the next few years.
Mm. That sounds great, Jim. It sounds really topical. I wonder if you could describe the kind of people that you would expect to come to Telford for this conference.
Well, obviously, the conference is going to feature the trade exhibitions, so there's going to be a lot of technology companies there promoting their wares and their experience and technologies and knowledge. But what we're trying to do with the conference is focus on the science. And therefore, we have really tried to feature speakers who are leaders in their particular field. Not always academic, but people from industry, from research, from government, and also technicians and practitioners of air quality who are leaders in their field. And this is what the conference is going to focus on. So I think we're going to see people from all of those walks of life, all of the larger air quality community. But I think especially this year, we should be encouraging people from building regulation, ventilation companies, abatement companies, both external and indoor, all to come along and see how the various different aspects of air pollution management and abatement, because that's what it's all about, is making air pollution a thing of the past and improving air quality for everyone going forward. I think we're also going to look this year at encouraging the new generation of scientists to come along to the conference and participate, perhaps as well as in the conference, in the poster presentations, which will run alongside the conference.
So it sounds to me like, in addition to the consultants and the academics and the people who are responsible for doing the monitoring, we're now talking to people who are involved in facilities management, in building design, in highways, and in town planners, and all these people who have an impact on air quality. And of course, hopefully we'll also encourage a large number of environmental health officers to attend, because these are the people who are kind of at the coalface of managing air quality.
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. And in fact, although we have a national strategies for air quality in England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the responsibility for enforcing these regulations and for identifying improvements to air quality lies with local authorities. So I think it's very important that we see engagement with these local authorities at all levels, both political and environmental health officers, because at AQE they will be able to identify a whole range, not only of technologies, but of expertise, practice, and really interesting, innovative ways to address the challenges that they face, most especially in low emission zones and clean air zones, which are being rolled out across the country. But AQE really covers all of the issues around air quality, including from industrial emissions all the way down to local air pollutant sources, and of course traffic, which is the big one that most people are struggling with at the moment. So yeah, I agree with you. A really wide range of audience, and if last year's virtual conference is anything to go by, we saw an incredibly diverse group of people benefiting from that last year. I hope that the same thing will happen in Telford this year.
That's great. Thanks very much, Jim. Probably the last thing to say is that registration is open now. Registration is free. It's a free to attend event. Telford is easy to get to. Parking is free. It's not like the NEC. So sign up now, and we look forward to seeing everybody there. And thanks so much for your time, Jim. Look forward to seeing you in Telford.
Absolutely. I registered yesterday, so I look forward to seeing everyone in person on the day. Thank you.
Man. Thanks, Jim.
Cheers.
Cheers.